don't understand what these people have been through or seen it. And he even comes across some, gangbangers in a sense, and they have no idea what they're dealing with, because you've got a guy who's dealt with most crazy kind of evil people out there on that, but he looks around and he's seeing how that these men give their time for service to their country because they love the United States, but when they come back, they realize, in a sense, that a large part of the United States, they say they care about them, they say they want to listen, they say they want to help them, but when he finds out his own armed forces betray him, where he essentially, it's hard to explain. It's like this, and this, let me try to simplify it. Basically, the major is a higher ranking officer, and military is very strict on this, with the exception of a doctor on that. That when a lower officer overthrows a higher officer, and the higher officer is still cognitive, which basically means is not killed, that you were still supposed to listen to the higher officer. And unless it's a doctor can overthrow any officer at any time. However, if they're wrong, they're in big trouble. That's considered mutiny. This is popularized by the Navy very frequently. And with the Navy, just to give you a little background here, the Navy, like the ship's doctor out at sea, or even a naval hospital, if a doctor of stature feels that a commanding officer is incapable of his duties or is recklessly threatening his men with an unreasonable circumstances, and this is not, and what they're trying to evaluate this is that when they get into situations, I don't remember a situation being like this in the United States Navy where they said, turn the boats and ram the sucker because our guns are gone. I don't remember that, but they try to teach these doctors that sometimes these captains have to do, and they have no choice. And interesting enough, if you watch, I've actually got a little inspiration on this in the television show MASH, on that, where, and this is Henry Blake, which Henry Blake was one of my favorite actors in that, because I'm the one that actually could relate most to him, because he, for all purposes, was a good man. He actually cared about his enlisted people more than his officers, and he was Colonel Henry Blake. I'm sorry, not Major. Colonel Henry Blake. And the rule that he learned when in medical school is rule number 1, young men die, and rule number 2, doctors can't change rule number 1. And that was from MASH. But and just to get back there, what this situation was is that the officer was incapacitated but coherent, but his decision making was costing more and more people's lives, and he did not have the experience to deal with the situation, whereas Captain B did. So Captain B made a decision to get his men out of there, and take his commander back personally to the base. So he brings the commander back the major back to the base. Major takes him, but then it's all full of ego on this, and it happens to be the generals or somehow the higher-ups are connected to this major. So word gets around the base that he was insubordinate and gossip and everything. So the military, having to make a good example out of someone for discipline reasons, and this never really got in the press, discharged him, Captain B. No benefit, no pensions, no nothing. Just discharged him. It wasn't a dishonorable discharge, which that could be a bit stiff. But it wasn't an honorable discharge, so when he's looking for work, that gets hard. because they're like, well, it leaves the question, why weren't you honorably discharged versus why weren't you dishonorably discharged? And that potential employers look at that. He was just straight discharged. So in effect, without being honorably discharged, he was dishonorably discharged because the question remains. It's kind of like, let's see. It's kind of like when someone accuses someone of doing something, they don't have to be right. They just have to accuse them of it. And then whatever happens, that stigma remains with that person. And it racks up to like, oh, I was wrong, but it doesn't matter. The damage is done, and the stigma stays with them. It's just like the dishonor. So, the monologue had, I grew up as a hero, a believing a hero. Truth about me is, with Captain B, is I grew up as being bullied. I grew up being bullied every day. One day, a kid was bullying me on a field trip. I went so crazy, I tried to punch at him, and I broke a store case. He was in the middle of the case, and I just hit the top of the thing. The whole thing shattered. I got sent home. And I believed in, from what my pastors, what everyone always told me is about doing the right thing. So I felt doing the right thing was join the Marines. And joining the Marines, I've been everywhere. I've seen the world, from Pakistan, Iraq, to Thailand, Bangkok. I've been everywhere as a Marine. And then, yeah, you see all these things, and they teach you all those things here, but what they don't teach you is how to deal with a problem when your own leadership abandons you for the greater good of the cause. In Japanese mentality, in specifically feudal Japan, that when a samurai did wrong by his master, the samurai is allowed to go to his master and commit seppuku. And there's misconceptions of what seppuku was. Seppuku basically is you took a knife and disemboweled yourself right in front of your master, usually in a courtyard, so you wouldn't mess up the house. But you redeemed your honor, and you redeemed your master's honor. This was especially popular with the emperor. When one of the feudal lords did wrong to the emperor, they would do this to save their family, and their family's name, their title here. If the man did this, then no punishment was done. The family kept the lands, and everything. In a sense, what I did was committed seppuku when I went to my commanders and told them what happened, because it was the right thing to do. And what did they do? I thought for sure they would look at the whole situation, evaluate the situation, and be objective, find the right decision, hear my side of it. I'm a 14-year combat veteran. I've been shot 3 times. I should have some standing on this. And they listen. What do? They listen to the Harvard loudmouth. And they don't listen to the guys in the trenches. That's sad. And what did I do? For my bravery, I got sent home. And I was sent home in disgrace. Not even allowed. When they discharged me, I had to go to my bunk, my master suite, and pack it myself. I was not allowed to talk to any of my platoon members. I was not allowed to do anything, say goodbye. I was escorted by the military police, put on a plane, and sent back to the United States. I had nothing to come back to the States except my parents' house in Alameda, California. Wasn't so bad. I was skilled combat. I was also picked up some metalworking skills. I was okay. I was going to be okay. When I got off that plane, and after 6 months being in Alameda, I realized that there were no jobs for combat veterans. You know, there was no real action. There was no nothing. You couldn't be a martial arts instructor, even though I could probably whoop about 80 of them, probably 80 to 90% of their rears. There was no. Actually, no, it's probably even higher. I'm only saying 80 to 90 because I'm out of shape. When I was at my peak, I probably whooped 95% of them. On that, I admit there were some people out there that's just damn good and damn fast, and I couldn't keep up with. But the rest of them, they're really good, really good. And that's what I face, and that's what got me here today. That those that call for my skills to go fight the good fight, so to speak. That's kind of the monologue I've been thinking. I'm out of character now as Captain B. Now, Captain B during this film has kind of a love interest, and I've actually effectively named her Sharon. I don't know where I got that name. Sharon. I'm not gonna say her last name, but Sharon kind of does work. It just gives you an idea. Sharon lives actually in San Francisco. And it's kind of a complicated story about what's going on love interest. But later on in the film, one thing I want to touch on is he actually meets up with his old crew, his old members, officers that were there. They heard where he's living. Someone finally got a hold of him, and he meets them at a bar in Alameda. And conversation kind of goes like this, where it's like, Captain B, hey, what's up? How you doing? All that stuff. I haven't ironed all that out. They're like, it's like, it's the men still talk about what you did that day, and they're still upset. They're good men. You're the men you trained. They're still doing the right thing. They've done this. They have this many kills, but everyone still remembers you. It's as if they're fighting for you because you were not allowed to play. I'm just gonna name the guy, whatever, John or Lieutenant John, or actually Captain's like Lieutenant. You know what it feels like, essentially. What's going on with me? I feel like a kid at a baseball game at a sandlot, and I can't play because I'm not cool, or I'm not. That's what I feel like. You know, you can't play because we don't like you. Not that I don't have the skills, not that I can't help. You can't play because we don't like you.